All right. I got something a little different for you guys today. And the thing that I have for you guys is a little post by Healthy Gamer GG. And so I'm just going to pull it up right here. And it says, "No one wants to work. Corporate CEOs on Gen Z workers. Anyone ever wonder why Gen Z is so nihilistic and anti work? In the past, it was all about making money and surviving. It was clear what we had to do. If you suck it up and work hard for a while, you can save up, chill, and have fun later on in life. The problem is, for many, working hard no longer yields the same results. There's no guarantee that getting a good degree and a good job will get you things in life anymore. Everything is more and more expensive. Some people struggle to make ends meet while working multiple jobs. Now, what you have is disillusioned people who constantly ask themselves, is this all there is to life? They're searching for something more, so they don't take any crap at work. It's not anti work, it's anti companies and bosses who treat their employees like garbage. It's easy to pile on Gen Z, but they do have a point. Do you relate to this, whether you're Gen Z or not? Unless you're one of the lucky few who knew what their life purpose was at a young age, I think most of us have questioned the meaning of our existence at some point. And now that I read this, it brings up a pretty interesting idea of like, there's this whole sentiment about like people being anti-work and stuff, but it's more like over the years, like companies' bad practices are more public, more well known, just due to the fact that we have so much information influxing all around at the same time. And when people will look at this, they look at these practices, they're going to say like, well, I don't want to work for a company because you are disposable at any time. For example, I'll just speak specifically to the my industry, this industry that I'm into, is like tech. The tech industry had a bunch of layoffs, like not even just video games, just even like development layoffs across the board. And what happens then is that, well, even though you know how to program and this and that, and if you're good at it, doesn't matter who you were. Even if I look at that like Destiny 2, the game, they fired one of the veterans. I think his name is Michael Salvatore. Like he used to work on he's been with Bungie for a long time. And even this man, who's been with the company for how long, was not safe. And guess who's pocketing all the money? It's the CEOs, and they get their Christmas bonuses and all that. But, anyways, point is, of course, tech industry is not the only one that gets layoffs. Is that one's the one? That's the one that had the most, like in recent memory, and that's also the one I'm interested in. But going back to what I was saying, working is a very specific, like, it's a need. No one wants to get up and they say, I want to go to work. Especially if you work like minimum wage. Oof, you get, in some jobs anyway, you get disrespected for literally that, working minimum wage. And there's nothing you can do about it. While some of us can accept, like, it is what it is, some people are like, I don't want to do that. And it's 100% understandable. Why would you want to work for a company, especially if you're in the more competitive fields? Why would you want to work in that field if you can just get cut off with all the hard work? Because even going back, like, I don't know, even, I'm going to say even 10 years ago, 10 years ago, you definitely, it was more manageable to survive and get by, especially with the cost of living, which is everybody's biggest expense. The cost of living, especially rent, in some cities is so astronomically high, and people aren't buying houses, like office spaces aren't being used. And so right now, literally everything's holding on by like a very, very thin thread. And you have to ask yourself, well, why would I want to go work for somebody and maybe get some benefits and like work my way up in a company? Also, about the whole like Generation Z or Gen Z stuff, it's kind of like every single generation, like every latest generation, is always going to get shat on. There's no way about it. I'm sure like millennials got shat on like maybe 10 years ago when they were the ones who were like probably against work or something like that. The one before that, or was it Generation X? My God, no. Yeah, Generation X, I believe, was that one, and they probably got shot on. And then you had baby boomers and going back and back and back. So what I find is that, in terms of this whole like sentiment, at least especially for this post in particular, it's like, well, Gen Z is just the latest one. Whatever. If there's Gen Alpha is going to get shot on too. But like I said though, if you really scale back, you could definitely get by having just a job, and that could pay off your house and this and that. But because things are always changing, like the economy always changes, new stuff gets introduced. For example, now, I said the cost of living is ridiculous. I'm sure if you go look up for an apartment right now, like for a tiny little space, it could probably cost you up to like $1,500 depending on the city you are in, and that's not even counting for like if you have to take in roommates and stuff. Whew. And the only way it started on like food is going up, everything's going up, gas is going up, and you're gonna ask yourself is that because you can lose your job at any time, and more people have more access to like information saying this stuff, it's like, well, do I really want to lose? Do I really want to work for somebody? Is this a good idea? And for me, I'm gonna say no. Now, my solution, at least what I would like to do, is of course have multiple ways of making money. So that way, in case I ever lose a job or something, then I can always fall back on something else until I, get my life back in order. That's my ideal world. So that's something I'm always going to be working towards no matter what. But not everyone's going to be thinking that way. And is there really a solution to this? I would say no. Like, there's not really a solution. But I can say that you have to, in a way, you have to make working more appealing to people, especially when when companies try to maximize the most. Like, when cutbacks happen, well, cutbacks include a lot of stuff, and paying people is an expense. So it's like, well, for now, we can take the short-term benefits and just axe these people out. Well, yes, some companies will invest long-term into other stuff. I'm just saying, when it comes to like cutting off workers, that stuff's easy, and they don't care if you if you can't pay your rent. That's not their problem. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't like this whole sentiment per se about like nobody wants to work. It's not that no one wants to work. It's more like no one wants to work and have nothing come out of it. You know what I mean? Like, working for nothing is not satisfying, and it's not beneficial to anybody. It's literally what we call slavery. That's what it is. And no one wants to be slave to any company. And me, I'm definitely one of those people. Yikes. Also, I'm going to add on top of that the fact that, as far as I remember, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are also checking out of college, and I believe young men are leading the charge on that, like leaving college. And now you have less people being like educated for higher fields, and some fields you actually need a degree to get into because you need a certain degree of knowledge, a certain skill set to get in. And that's I don't know what to say, actually. Like, people leaving school as well is a tough one, because the long-term consequences, I can't see them, like, I can't really explain them right off the top of my head. But I guess just to go shooting to the dark here, an example, like I said, some of these jobs are going to be shorted because people aren't putting in the time to go to school. And also, when you have like a less educated population, I believe stuff like birth rates can get out of control because on average, less educated people have more kids. And people who are more educated, they'll wait, they'll get their job, they'll do this and that, and then they'll start to have kids, and then families shrink and all that. And huge population boom can be a problem for other reasons, but that's just me shooting in the dark. Okay, I don't have all the answers. Circling back to the main points here, I'm just saying that in general, like, especially when it comes from like companies and CEOs, they're so out of touch with the general population that, of course, when like if like Gen Z sees that, they're gonna be like, well, why would she listen to you? It's like, yeah, it's kind of like that, actually. When you can't relate to somebody, how can you talk about issues? You know what I mean? Like, you would talk about stuff, but it doesn't really hit home as hard as someone who relates to the issue or is in there. Like, if two poor people are talking about how they have no money, it makes more sense. But if someone who's rich said, I remember what it's like being poor, yes, there's value in it, but people are going to take it as like, well, you were poor, but it's like, now you're not. You feel me? Yeah. That's how I see it about it. But these companies really don't understand what they're talking about. And it's also not even like, what was said. It's who said it. That's a big part too. Like, who said that? CEOs? Who takes them seriously? CEOs, people know they work in their own best interest. And if firing you is in their own best interest, they won't even hesitate to cut you off. No problem. Doesn't matter how high tier you are or how low tier you are, you're going to be gone. But yes. Of course, when it comes to a company, they'll always take the shortest route to make the most out of it. You know what I mean? That's what I was going to say on that one. But anyways, yeah, no, this was a little quick discussion I'm just opening up. And, hopefully some stuff I said can maybe be talked about in the future. And hopefully this opens you guys up to figuring out what you guys want to do. Because even if you know your purpose at, say, 6 years old, that can change, like, even like 10 years from then. You know what I mean? Like nothing's ever straight. For example, life is very fluid, I find. At least in my experience. It's very fluid. There's no straight direct way to get somewhere. There's not really there's also like other opportunities. Actually, I'm going to slot this in before we go. Also, when you see stuff like social media and you see people living like a particular lifestyle, actually, or you see how people made money, by the age of, I don't know, like 21 or something, and you see that, and you have like young impressionable people, they're going to be like, well, if this person made it, maybe I can also put in the work to do it as well. When, the circumstances for that to happen were probably very specific, and maybe you could replicate it again, but we don't know. But my point is, when you see that, people are going to be like, well, instead of doing this 9 to 5 garbage, why don't I find another way? And that's what happens. When you push people into a corner, sometimes they innovate. Actually, no, they always innovate. Or they push back, which is what you're seeing now. And, the pushback is, people dropping out of schools, people finding other ways to make money and all that fun stuff. Now, I'll say this much. The reason why I'm still staying in schools because I'd like to have something just in case. You never know what happens. It's always good to have a background in some kind of specialty. And yeah, mine's just IT, but there's more than one way to make money. And especially when stuff piles on top of you always, you have to figure out different ways to do it. You have to figure out new ways on how you can combat the circumstances. Anyways, that's all I'm going to say on this topic. Is Gen Z lazy? No, I'm not going to make that argument. I would say just that people have seen what can happen to you in the future, and with everything piling on, having a 9 to 5 is not safe anymore. You have to have more than one way to make money, and more than one way to sustain yourself and feed yourself. And God forbid, you move out on your own. You have to take on all of this outside pressure. Not many people can pull it off. Trust me. Some people will be struggling. But save money where you can, and of course, know what you got to do. But if you enjoyed this little discussion, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow my socials down in the description below. And if you hit that dislike, well, you're just part of the matrix like everybody else. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.